Burns. Management of burns includes immediate care of the burn patient, assessment of the burn wound, fluid resuscitation, treatment of burn wound. Immediate care of the burn patient. Pre-hospital care. Ensure rescuer safety. Stop the burning process. Check for other injuries. Primary survey. Standard ABC, airway, breathing, circulation. Secondary survey, to rule out other significant injuries, for example, spine injuries. Cool the burn wound. Cooling provides analgesia and slows the delayed microvascular damage that can occur after a burn injury. Important first aid step in partial thickness burns. Give oxygen. Elevate. Sitting a patient up with a burned airway proves to be life-saving. Elevation of burned limbs will reduce swelling and discomfort. Hospital care. Criteria for acute admission of a burns patient. Suspected airway or inhalational injury. Any burn likely to require fluid resuscitation. Any burn likely to require surgery. Patients with burns of any significance to the hands, face, feet, or perineum. Patients whose psychiatric or social background makes it inadvisable to send them home. Any suspicion of non-accidental injury. Any burn in a patient at the extremes of age. Any burn with associated potentially serious sequelae, including high-tension electrical burns and concentrated hydrofluoric acid burns. Principles of management of an acute burn injury are the same as in any acute trauma case. A. Airway control. B. Breathing and ventilation. C. Circulation. D. Disability, to evaluate neurological status. E. Exposure to environmental control. F. Fluid resuscitation. Major determinants of the outcome of a burn. Percentage of surface area involved. Depth of burns. Presence of inhalational injury. Airway. Recognition of the potentially burned airway. History of being trapped in the presence of smoke or hot gases. Burns on the palate or nasal mucosa, or loss of all the hairs in the nose. Deep burns around the mouth and neck. Initial management of the burned airway. Early elective intubation is safest. Delay can make intubation very difficult because of swelling. Time frame, 4 to 24 hours. Must be ready to perform emergency cricothyroidotomy if intubation is delayed. Assessment of the burn wound. Assessing size. The patient's whole hand is 1% total body surface area and is a useful guide in small burns. The Lund and Browder chart is useful in larger burns. The rule of 9 is adequate for a first approximation only. Assessing depth from the history. The history is important. Temperature, time, and burning material. Based on thickness, it's divided into 3 superficial, partial thickness burns, deep partial thickness burns, and full thickness burns. Superficial partial thickness burns. The damage in these burns goes no deeper than the papillary dermis. The clinical features are blistering and/or loss of the epidermis. The underlying dermis is pink and moist. The capillary return is visible when blanched. There is little or no fixed capillary staining. Pinprick sensation is normal. Superficial partial thickness burns heal without residual scarring in 2 weeks. The treatment is non-surgical. Deep partial thickness burns. These burns involve damage to the deeper parts of the reticular dermis. Clinically, the epidermis is usually lost. The exposed dermis is not as moist as that in a superficial burn. There is often abundant fixed capillary staining, especially if examined after 48 hours. The color does not blanch with pressure under the examiner's finger. Sensation is reduced, and the patient is unable to distinguish sharply from blunt pressure when examined with a needle. Deep dermal burns take 3 or more weeks to heal without surgery and usually lead to hypertrophic scarring. Full thickness burns. The whole of the dermis is destroyed in these burns. Clinically, they have a hard, leathery feel. The appearance can vary from that similar to the patient's normal skin to charred black, depending upon the intensity of the heat. There is no capillary return. Often, thrombosed vessels can be seen under the skin. These burns are completely anesthetized. A needle can be stuck deep into the dermis without any pain or bleeding. Fluid resuscitation. Principle: the intravascular volume must be maintained following a burn to maintain adequate tissue perfusion. Indications: children, over 10% burns. Adults, over 15% burns. If oral fluids are to be used, salt must be added. Fluids used in burns resuscitation are Ringer lactate. It's the most commonly used fluid. It's as effective as colloids for maintaining intravascular volume. Less expensive. As capillaries are leaky initially, even large protein molecules leak out of capillaries. Hypertonic saline. It produces hyperosmolarity and hypernatremia. Reduces the shift of intracellular water to the extracellular space. Less tissue edema and a resultant decrease in escherotomies and intubations. The simplest and most widely used formula is the Parkland formula. This calculates the fluid to be replaced in the first 24 hours by the following formula. Total percentage body surface area multiplied by weight in kilograms multiplied by 4 is equal to volume in milliliter. Half this volume is given in the first 8 hours, and the second half is given in the subsequent 16 hours. Human albumin solution. Without proteins, plasma volumes would not be maintained, as there would be edema. Proteins should be given after the first 12 hours of burn, because before this time, the massive fluid shifts cause proteins to leak out of the cells. The most common colloid-based formula is the Muir and Barclay formula. 0.5 multiplied by the percentage body surface area burnt multiplied by weight equals to 1 portion. Fluid administration follows a rhythmic cadence with periods of 4 by 4 by 4, 6 by 6, and 12 hours, respectively. 1 portion to be given in each period. Monitoring of resuscitation. Monitor urine output, ensuring that urine output falls within the optimal range of 0.5 milliliter and 1 milliliter per kilogram of body weight per hour. That's all for the video. We'll see you next time.